Hey guys, what's up? What's good? Welcome back to the Ethan Aesthetic. My name is Ethan, obviously. Today I'm going to be talking about my experience working at Gap and some of the things that I've noticed that aren't necessarily working in their favor. So, for those of you who don't know, I worked for Gap Inc. at Old Navy first and then Gap itself for the past 3.5 years now. And recently, Gap has run into, let's say, hot water. They've started closing stores uh, nationwide. And this is just some of the things that I've seen that I believe could be contributing to that. So let's just jump right in. First, their demographic. So Gap caters to a very specific age group, I think. And I would put those people, their target group, at around 35 to 65 years of age. That's all well and good. These people need clothes, obviously, but they only cater to those people. And the problem with this is that these people just don't buy clothes. They know what works for them. They know their body type. Their bodies aren't changing, so there's no need for them to go out and buy clothes all that often. And once they buy what they want, they basically wear it until it falls off of their body. So when you cater to this group of people, you don't see your return on your investment because the people who buy your clothes one day aren't coming back because there's no need for them to come back. Whereas if they catered you can cater to those group of people, that's fine. But if you also cater to groups that are younger, like people who are my age, we buy clothes, we keep up with trends, we look for things that will push it to the next level because we don't yet have a solidified aesthetic. We don't necessarily know what works for us. We're still figuring it out. Our bodies are still changing. So we are the ones who buy clothes. And the clothes that Gap sells, frankly, just don't fit that style. Let's look at what Gap sells. They sell corded sweatshirts, they sell mom jeans, they sell blouses, they sell chinos, they sell button-down shirts. That's all well and good, but those things aren't frankly trendy. So people my age don't buy them, and we're the ones who buy clothes most often. People who are 65 aren't too concerned about what they're putting on their bodies, and if they are, they know what works for them, and so they're not shopping for new clothes. All these things together work against Gap in that their target demographic aren't coming back to buy new clothes, to put money into their company to keep it running. Problem two is their price range. Frankly, I'm just going to say it. I think Gap is a little bit overpriced. So, Gap is priced in a place where they are competing with stores like J. Crew, they're competing with Nordstrom's, they're competing with high-end stores, and Gap simply cannot compete. When you hear the name Gap, you don't think of that high-end clothes that you would find at J. Crew. You don't think of young professional that you think of when you hear J. Crew. You don't think of fashion couture when you hear Nordstrom's. These are high-end brands and they're priced accordingly. Gap, I feel, has a bit of an identity crisis in that they're trying to compete with stores that are out of their league. If you remember a few years back, like 10 years ago, Gap was huge. Everybody had like a zip-up sweater that said Gap on it. They were affordable, they were priced accordingly, they knew who they were. And Gap has lost that, I think, in that they're trying to rebrand themselves and they're not doing it very well. They're just upping the prices of their clothes without any sort of follow through. So people go into Gap if they do, and they look at their clothes and they see a $60 sweatshirt or a $60 sweater that they could find for much better quality, they think, at a store like J. Crew because it's a name that somebody would recognize as being high end, being good quality. That's not to say that Gap has cheap, bad quality clothes. That's not what I'm saying. I mean, if you take a look at my Instagram, half of my clothes come from Gap. So I buy Gap. Gap is a fine company. Their clothes are great. It's just that the way that they branded themselves is not cohesive with the clothing with the I can speak, I promise. Is not cohesive with the clothing that they are selling. Problem number 3, they've become complacent. Uh when you walk into Gap, season after season you see the same staple items. It's fine to have staple items, but you also need things that are new, fashion forward, trendy. You need to be constantly looking at the market, looking at what's hot, what people are buying, and Gap isn't. For example, wintertime. When you walk into Gap, you can find chinos, you can find button-down shirts all the time, year round. You can find sweaters, you can find sweatshirts, you can find flannels. Those are their winter items year after year after year. And again, when you're catering to people who aren't buying clothes already, bringing in the same clothes aren't going to get them to buy anything anyway. Because if they already bought that red sweatshirt the year before, they're not needing to buy the orange sweatshirt, the orange sweatshirt. I can speak, I promise. Just because it's new. They don't care. So, this is what they're selling: corded sweatshirts, blouses, things like that. And frankly, once you have one, great. But then you're not going to buy 10 more. So one item is not going to make a store thrive. Whereas a store like PacSun is constantly revamping themselves. What you find one season, you won't find the next year. If they sell a Moto jacket one year, you're not going to find that same Moto jacket the next year. So it keeps their demographic coming back. Whereas Gap, they're not doing anything to try to revamp themselves year after year. They become complacent because one thing worked one time, so they keep selling that. That's fine. It's fine to have a staple item, but you also need things that are going to get people to come back to the store, and Gap doesn't. A perfect example of this is about a year ago, Gap did this anniversary sale with limited time only denim and sweatshirts and things like that, where they brought in like skater jeans, they brought in cool patch jeans, they brought in ripped jeans, they had pastel sweatshirts, they had shirts that had patches on them, they had jean jackets with patches on them. They were very trendy, very cool, and they sold. People bought them because they were trendy. But the problem was that Gap didn't listen. They didn't say, people bought these items. Maybe we should make these the staple items and revamp and bring these back in different ways because this is what people wanted. This is what sold. They didn't do that. So when people came back about a month later looking for those same items, we didn't have any more because they were limited time only. And we went back to the staple items that we always sold, which people no longer wanted. And finally, problem 4 is that they don't listen to what their customers are saying. This is probably the most concerning thing that I think has led to their demise, let's say. A perfect example of this, the CEO of Gap came to my store last year. Back in June, the CEO of Gap, the the chief purchasing officer, the head of production, head marketing, a bunch of head honchos from Gap came to my store. I was told to treat them like any other customer. I saw the CEO looking at belts. I went over to him and I greeted him. I said, "Hi, can I help you find anything?" He put his hand up and he said, "No, I'm fine." Didn't look at me, didn't want to hear what I have to say, didn't even give me the time of day. They don't listen to their employees, they don't listen to their customers, and that's very concerning. Let me give you another example of this. So, let's say you go to Gap and they have 4 different patterns of flannels. Let's say 3 of them are selling. What Gap does is that they will ship in higher volumes that 4th pattern flannel that isn't selling in order to force their customers to buy it. And they'll ship in lower volumes the items that are selling. And it's never a good idea to try to force your customers to buy something because if they didn't want it before, they're not going to want it now when it's the only thing there. What they're going to do is they're just going to go to a different store and spend their money elsewhere. And Gap, I don't think, realizes this, frankly, because they're not doing anything to change their business strategy. At Old Navy, when something wasn't selling, they would stop shipping it to us, or they would ship it to us in lower volumes and up the volumes of what was selling. Gap does the opposite. And so people come into the store, they see that they don't have what they're looking for, and they go somewhere else. So you're losing the customers that you might have gotten if you had listen to what they wanted and listen to what was selling. And the other thing that this does is when we get audited, we have enough volume of clothes because they ship higher volumes of things that aren't selling. So we always have enough stock, but it's stock of things that nobody wants. So we're not making money based on the percentage of clothes that are being shipped to us. So we basically just have pile-ups. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Again, it's not me trying to bash Gap, saying that they are a bad store. I shop at Gap all of the time. I shop at Old Navy. It's not to say that either of these stores are bad. It's just what I've noticed that has landed them in kind of some hot water. And I hope they turn it around and they can get back to where they were when they were really, really popular. But this is just what I've noticed has been going on in my experience. If you want more of like a story time video, believe me, I have a ton of stories that I would be happy to share. Just let me know. And also, I don't have a business degree. I don't have a marketing degree. Marketing degree. I can speak, I promise. I don't have like any formal training. I just have my own two eyes, what I've seen. So, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next time. Bye!